Welcome to Flip It Furniture. My name is Amy. Today we're making over this piece I got from the thrift store. It was sitting there for months and months. I was waiting for somebody to buy it, but nobody did. The price was right. It was only $40. There are some issues with it, for sure, but I love this piece. I thought maybe somebody would get it and refinish it, but they didn't. So now we're going to paint it. I start this makeover by removing all of the hardware. Then I take all the drawers out and I begin to vacuum the inside of the cubbies. I want to remove all of the dust. I noticed somebody tried to do some repairs, and to keep that little piece of wood in place, they used some nails, but as I inspected it further, all it really needs is some wood glue. So I decided to remove the nails. At this point, I thought I better clean the piece first and then I'll work on this part. So I'm using my Dixie Belle's White Lightning Cleaner. It's just a little powder. I pour it into some warm water, I mix it, and then I thoroughly wash the piece down. I wash the outside of the piece and the inside of the piece. I even wash underneath the piece. Once I finish that part, I get a fresh rag and I rinse the piece down with a little bit of water. I just want to make sure that there's no cleaner residue left on my piece. Once the cleaning is finished, I can move on to the repairs. There's a couple gouges. They're very small, but I just want to make sure that I fill those in with a little bit of wood filler before I begin painting, or else we're going to have dips and divots and it's just not going to look great. Once my wood filler dries, a couple hours later I come back and I just give it a nice sanding with a little sanding pad. And back to the apron repair. I'm just going to use some Titebond wood glue and glue the plywood to the supports. Then I clamp it and let it sit until the glue dries. And once it was all dry, I came back and I needed to scrape off some of that paint from where they had put the nails in. It just got real chunky and I want everything to be nice and smooth. So I did my best. I could have used a scraper, but I grabbed what was close, and that was a flathead screwdriver. Now for the top, there are some burn marks. There is a little bit of gunk on there too, so I did grab my scraper blades and I just, tried to get some of that gunk off. Now there's some gunk at the top where they had put there was a mirror. I could tell because there are mirror marks and it was just like grime, like right here as you can see. So I just removed some of the grime. Then I needed to re-glue these drawer slides. They could be nailed in, but the nail kept popping out. So it just needs, a little bit of wood glue. This is not a huge repair. It's pretty easy, and I'll clamp them up and I'll do the bottom one next. Now I need to shellac this piece before painting it for two reasons. The first reason is because the tannins and the bleed through. For sure I'll have tannins on this piece. So shellac is a great blocking primer. But the second reason is because if somebody wants to come back and restore this someday, when they have to remove the paint, the shellac will act like a shell over it. So we're going to protect the furniture. Shellac works as a really good barrier in between paint and an original finish. I'm using a high density foam roller for this because it's going to go pretty quick and I can get a couple other projects out of the roller. I'll have to put it in a baggie and keep it wet. If it dries, it'll dry really hard and it'll be garbage. So I'm probably only going to get about 3 uses out of it. I felt like it could use a little something, so I'm adding some of these WoodUBends to it. I will link the products in the description box below if you want to see which WoodUBends I used. I take the WoodUBend out, and there's 2 that come in a pack. And then I use my heat gun to heat them up. And you heat it up until it bends. Literally, the wood will bend. And then it kind of forms onto the piece that you're using. So if you're painting something with curves and you want to use a WoodUBend on it, it's ideal because it will bend to fit the piece. And once it's nice and bendy, I use my wood glue, the Type-On wood glue, and I just put it all over the back and then apply it to the apron. After I place the WoodUBend where I want it to be, I take my heat gun, but I did lose that footage. So I did use the heat gun and heated it back up a little bit. That also heats the glue. And then once I'm done with that, the glue is like semi-dry. I take a water bottle and I just mist all over to get that excess glue off of it. And you can just use a brush. And if you wash your brush right away, the glue won't stay in your brush. If you leave it, then your brush will be garbage, but I just wash mine right after I'm done using it. Now for the painting portion of this. I used coffee bean and I painted the top and the sides in Dixie Belle's coffee bean. I always use my water mister so that I get a nice smooth finish. This is only the base coat. Now for the front of this dresser, I had this project planned out for a little bit over a month. I don't know, when I saw the transfer I'll be using, I kind of knew what I was going to do, but it didn't pan out. Sometimes that happens. So I have coffee bean on the bottom. I was blending a little bit. I used chocolate next. And then because I wanted to pull some of the colors that I'm using in the transfer out, and I wanted to blend them. So then the next color I was going to add was Sage Green by Dixie Belle. So I added that and I blended that, with the chocolate. And then for the center, I wanted to add Sawmill Gravy. Now, this is a great color combination, but something was just telling me that it wasn't right. It started to look like camouflage, and there's nothing wrong with camo. I love camo. My brother and my husband are military veterans, so I love camo. But for this particular project, that is not the look I was going for. So this is a good color combination for another project. So I decided, well, maybe I'll try to add a little bit more of the drop cloth and get rid of some of the green. But I still did not like that. I tried one more thing. I won't even bore you with that. And then I finally figured out I have to get rid of the green and the white. So I ended up doing the whole center in chocolate and then the outside in the coffee bean. And I also did the apron and the WoodUBends in the coffee bean. So now we have the coffee bean on the top, the sides, and then blended into chocolate. And that's what I went with. And I think it was meant to be that way. I'll have to save the camo for another project. Now I only have like an ounce of the coffee bean left, and I want to get a really smooth finish. So when I add water to the chalk mineral paint, I get so much more out of it, and it's really great with coverage. So I'm just going to use another high density foam roller to apply it, and adding my water just like I would if I had used my brush. It's just going to let a little go a long way, and it makes it really smooth, no brush strokes. So I really like using the roller. Just sometimes it hurts my hand, but my hands are doing good right now, so I'm using it, and it makes things go by a lot faster. I always take my time with my blends, but when I'm applying like one color, I don't know, that's not as fun to me. So putting it on with the roller is just fine. And I just want to show you how much water I actually use. Somebody had mentioned that they didn't realize when they were painting how much water to actually use to not get the brush strokes and to make the most out of the paint. So I just wanted to show you there. I use quite a bit for, just a one color application. And I don't know if you can see, but there's a couple of little chunks in my chalk paint, and that's because I didn't properly close the container. So there's little dried pieces. I take them out and I just kind of re-roll afterwards, but you want to be careful of that. And every time you use your chalk mineral paint, you want to make sure that you close that container the right way, or else you will have chunks and it'll affect your next project. If you keep it closed properly, it'll be, it'll go on like smooth butter the next time. And here I go to perfect the front. This will be the final coat for the front. I've done so many coats now that I just need to make sure everything looks good and smooth. And I want I want to perfect my blend. So one more coat of the chocolate blended with the coffee bean, and that'll do it. Right here I'm using a soft dry brush just to make sure that those colors are nicely blended. And if you're wondering what I do with the drawers, I just pick one of the colors and I carefully pull them out, and then I carefully paint them. And I don't want that coffee bean running to the front of the drawers where I have my chocolate, so I just use a rag and I carefully clean it. Now for the wow factor, we're going to use this Elegant Neutrals by Katja. It is such a gorgeous transfer, and looking at it now, I've seen this piece all finished. I'm really glad that I took out the sawmill gravy and the green, because there's a lot of it in the transfer, so it didn't really need it like I thought it did. So I take the transfer off of the backing paper, I add it to the piece where I want it, and then I just use that little tool that they provide and I start rubbing it on there. I do a quick rub first and then over the whole thing, and then I start to take that front paper off, and the transfer sticks to the piece just like a sticker would. Once I have the whole entire transfer on the piece, I take out the drawers, and then I'm using this burnishing pad to get rid of the little halo. Like you can see the halo on the stems right now. It's just like a little bit of the transfer paper, and if you gently rub it, it disappears. It fades into your paint, and then all you can see is the actual stems and not that like little light papering over it. And I do that over the entire transfer. I just lightly burnish. Now for the clear coat. I'm using Dixie Belle's clear coat in satin, and yes, I am indoors. I open my windows, I make sure there's enough ventilation, I use my respirator mask, and I just spray. I add a little bit of the coffee bean. I'm actually gonna spray the top and the sides with the coffee bean, and then I'll rinse my sprayer and do the front with just the regular clear coat. But I'm not worried about using the clear coat sprayer inside because it's clear, so it's not a big mess. I would never spray with the paint colors in the house. And then my next step here is I cleaned my hardware, so now I'm just adding Dixie Belle's gilding wax in bronze. And I just, put it on until it looks even and good. I'm also adding that bronze gilding wax to the WoodUBend on the bottom. We want to really make that pop. And the bronze, it's not too much. It's just right. I don't know. I'm loving bronze lately. I don't know if you've noticed, but in my last couple of videos, I've used bronze a lot. It's so pretty to me and elegant, and I don't know. So I add it to a lot of the details that are popping out, like that band under the drawer, and then the little circle and the WoodUBend. Here's a reminder of what we had when we started, and here it is today. I love the way the WoodUBend turned out, and I love the coffee bean with the bronze on top. I don't know, this piece looks really good, especially on this wall. I'm like so tempted to keep it. I don't know. Do you guys get that way? Like, I want to keep all the pieces. They're so pretty, but there's no room. But I don't know. I just really, really like it. I'd love to know what you think. Let me know down in the comments. And if you like it, please hit that like button and let me know. And if you want to subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next week.